Hi, it's Tina, tourism trainer, clarity coach, and founder of the Tourism Space. My mission is to help tourism professionals achieve high performance so they can build businesses and destinations that last. In order to build businesses and destinations that last, we need to have an eye on the future and an eye on what's happening all around us. What's changing in the world and in society, and how might that affect my business and my industry? And one of the things I'm giving a lot of attention to at the moment is the idea of megatrend analysis. Now, a megatrend, just to give you the correct definition, is defined as a long-term shift in behaviour or attitude with global impact across multiple industries. So fundamental changes in the way society thinks and acts around certain things. And megatrend analysis then is about successfully identifying, assessing and acting upon those megatrends. Now, there are lots of megatrends, and that's one of the challenges right now. There are so many different trends all happening at the same time that it's really quite difficult to keep up with the pace of change in technology and demographics and environmental pressures. All these things that is making society quite anxious at this moment in time. But megatrend analysis is a tool for you to prepare your business to be relevant in the future and to have long-term success. So let's just dive into it. The first thing to know is that tourism itself is now a megatrend. The increase in the volume of tourists and visitors is phenomenal. It is anticipated that 75% more people will travel as tourists in the next 10 years as did in the previous 10 years, and that has obvious complications for society. Because tourism is now a megatrend, there's much greater focus by society in general on this industry and on the role it plays in the development of society and the planet. And we may come to regard this year, 2018, as the seismic year where fundamental changes in attitude and behaviour occurred in relation to tourism. And the megatrend that's driving that is the search for sustainability. And you'll know yourself from the dialogue you hear every day that sustainability is a major topic of debate in mainstream media and in everyday dialogue nowadays. One thing we can notice in 2018 is that the mood around tourism is changing. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's have a look back, and I'm sure you'll recognise some of the things that I've noticed. I'm sure you've noticed them as well. So the first thing we can take from 2018 is the increased awareness that tourism affects the quality of people's lives, and that the tourism industry perhaps has a greater level of responsibility than it currently lives up to. The second thing we've noticed is that tourism has started to become associated with social ills in quite a few places, and that tourism may be seen as an industry that extracts more than it contributes to places. The other thing I've noticed is we've started to talk about places not as destinations but as communities, and communities have started to become centre stage in the dialogue and discourse around tourism. And as they come centre stage, the visitor is moving slightly to the side, slightly more to the wings. So we're starting to question the rights of the visitor and the absolute need to delight the visitor at all costs. There's certainly much more talk about behaviour of visitors and how we influence that behaviour and the responsibility the tourism industry has to influence that behaviour. The other big change is that using volume as a measure of success for tourism is no longer acceptable. That's a fundamental change that happened in mainstream dialogue this year. It has been questioned by many for quite a while, and now it has firmly entered the realm of unacceptability. Even adding value, so the value versus volume debate as an indicator, has been surpassed in 2018. The measure now of tourism performance is very much on that relationship between the host community, the visitor and the place. Because of this megatrend about the search for sustainability, the good of the environment and the good of society are of greater concern than they have ever been. And they're the two prisms through which the tourism industry and your tourism business will now be judged: the good of the environment and the good of society. So if those two things are not currently part of your business management model or your visitor experience development model, then it may be time to take notice of this trend, megatrend, respect it, and adjust your business management model accordingly. Now that might seem a little bit overwhelming. There's this huge, big societal change, and there's little me and my business, and what am I supposed to do about it? One option is to bury your head in the sand, and the other option is to realise that if this fundamental change has happened in society, then a fundamental change may be required in your business as well. And what we can do is decide to embark on a journey of continuous improvement or continuous adjustment in line with the way society is changing and behaviour and attitudes are changing. I worked for a number of years on a project that looked at exactly this, the idea of the practice of tourism in a way that would be sustainable for visitor, for community and for the place. And the team I worked with and the people I worked with and myself came up with 6 kind of indicators that combined in a framework to create a general practice of tourism that very much aligns with this search for sustainability. So I'm just going to share with you what those principles were, and maybe it might get you thinking a little bit about what actions you could take to implement those principles into your business model. So the first one is the idea of working together. So moving away from the idea that you are an individual business with no influence and starting to work with other businesses in your area, other stakeholders, agencies, policymakers, visitors themselves in the host community, and realising the shared responsibility for the development of tourism in the destination. The second one is the idea of a cared for landscape. So this is moving beyond the general nod at, yes, we need to protect our environment, and getting actively involved in protecting that through hands-on projects, through raising awareness of your visitors and training your staff. Very much related to that is the idea of a well-understood heritage. And this is related to that notion that tourism is extracting more than it's giving, relying on the built heritage, the cultural heritage and the natural heritage of places, cities and rural locations to sell visitor experiences. So this is about understanding the heritage, interpreting it, valuing it, and letting visitors know how they should behave and act in this place that belongs to a different community. And that brings me on to the fourth one, which is about vibrant communities. Very much the hot topic of the tourism and the over-tourism debate in 2018. So this is about your responsibility to ensure that the local community benefits as much from tourism in their area as your visitor does and as your business does. So have you got indicators around that? How do you engage with the community? How are they benefiting? How do they react to your business? This has become the responsibility of the entire tourism industry. And then strengthened livelihoods is the fifth key performance indicator. Now this is where profit and revenue and volume traditionally would sit. And yes, absolutely, it's about the importance of having businesses that are profitable and sustainably so, that can stay in locations and places over the long term and deliver a good standard of living to people and employees in that community. It's also about taking decisions about sourcing products and services locally, about employing local people, and about contributing to the economy of the area where your visitors are enjoying their experiences. So that's strengthened livelihoods. And the final one is sustainable environmental management, and this is very much in the last but not least category. Just this week, the United Nations Committee on Climate Change announced to the world the very stark realisation that the current global ambition to keep climate change at a 2% increase, or 2 degree increase, is not ambitious enough. That we need to aim for 1.5 degree at the maximum if we're to avoid catastrophic implications for the planet. So we have to expect that our obligations as citizens, but particularly as businesses, for sustainable environmental management is going to become ever greater. This means having systems in place for managing your production of waste and your management of your water, energy and wastewater. So establishing baselines, setting targets and taking action for improvement in this area on an ongoing basis. So I appreciate all of that seems like a lot, and it is a lot because the world is changing a lot. High performance tourism, which is where we started out, now has a new definition, and I'm sure it's something that's going to be defined more and more over the coming year and into the future. For now, we can certainly say that it's no longer about volume and revenue. It's about people living in cared for places. It's about running profitable businesses that make a profit ethically. It's about respecting the local communities, delighting the visitors, and doing all of that without a cost to the place and the community in that place. So that's what the search for sustainability might mean for tourism and might mean for your tourism business. It's a mega trend to watch. I'm hoping in the next few weeks to look at other mega trends in the blog. I hope you'll join me again next week, where we'll look at some of the other global forces affecting tourism and your tourism business. In the meantime, here's to your lasting success.